Joshua chapter 4, verse 8 says, "And the people of Israel did just as Joshua commanded, and took up 12 stones out of the midst of the Jordan, according to the number of the tribes of the people of Israel, just as the Lord told Joshua. And they carried them over with them to the place where they lodged, and laid them down there." Now, this is one of the reasons why I think that the 12 men probably were, even though it doesn't specify here in Joshua, they probably were the chiefs of the people. So each person would be the chief of his specific tribe, just like it was before in Numbers chapter 13. But this is why, because in the people of Israel, they did just as Joshua commanded. So the people of Israel here are represented, even though there were only 12 men, each one carrying a stone. So it wasn't the people of Israel, it was just 12 men. But these 12 men represented the people. Now, even if they were just 12 random men, they weren't the leaders or the chiefs of each of the tribes. I just say they still represent the people of Israel. And that's kind of what's going on here. So these 12 men, they represent the people of Israel. These 12 men were faithful to do exactly what Joshua commanded. Thus, the whole people of Israel, the whole congregation, the whole group was faithful. They did just as Joshua commanded. They took up 12 stones out of the midst of the Jordan. Here, for them to be faithful to Joshua and obedient to his commands, again, Joshua is just passing on the commands that were given to him by God. So God gave the command to Joshua. Joshua then passed that command on to the people. And so what we see is that their faithfulness to Joshua is actually faithfulness to God. Their faithfulness and obedience to Joshua is actually obedience and faithfulness to God. And so verse 8, "And the people of Israel did just as Joshua commanded, and took up 12 stones out of the midst of the Jordan." So they took these from the riverbed where the priests were standing, right in that area, according to the number of the tribes of the people of Israel. These are how many stones they took, one for each tribe. So one for Ephraim, one for Manasseh, one for Simeon, one for so-and-so. Just as the Lord told Joshua. Again, it goes back to, this isn't technically Joshua's command, even though Joshua obviously did command it. But what this ultimately is, this is God's command. God's command that Joshua is now passing on to the people. And the people are being faithful to God's commands. And so they carried them, the stones, over with them to the place where they lodged and laid them down there. Now, this wouldn't have been a super far walk, but listen, carrying a really big, heavy rock on your, on your shoulders from the riverbed, and again, these men probably picked the heaviest one. It doesn't matter if it's a long walk or a short walk, it's still a walk with a big, heavy rock on your shoulders. So this is obviously not an easy task to do. And so they carried them over with them to the place where they lodged and laid them down there. So I just want you to kind of picture exactly what's going on here. These men are carrying these rocks over to Gilgal, which we're going to see at the end of chapter 4, the place that they lodged tonight. And they're going to set it up as a memorial pillar so that all future generations will remember exactly what God did for his people. And so this is Joshua chapter 4, verse 8. "And the people of Israel, they did just as Joshua commanded, and took up 12 stones out of the midst of the Jordan, according to the number of the tribes of the people of Israel, just as the Lord told Joshua. And they carried them over with them to the place where they lodged and laid them down there." This is Joshua 4, 8.